Hello, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 7 of the ESG Experience, the podcast about all things ESG and beyond. Whether you're an ESG expert or just dipping your toes into the ESG universe, this podcast is for you. Together, we'll navigate the alphabet soup of ESG, share strategies, and discuss industry news and trends. I'm Helee Lev, SVP of ESG Operations at Conservice.
And I'm Ryan Nelson, SVP and General Manager of ESG at Conservice.
Today, we are lucky enough to be joined live from Las Vegas by Mike Robinson, an Executive EVP of organizations ranging from The Gap and Macy's, a founding member of retail sustainability platform The Eighth Notch, and board member of Vista Outdoor, owners of brands such as Camelback. He has over 25 years of leadership experience in the retail industry and is a valuable addition to the founding team of The Eighth Notch, a technology platform focused on sustainable delivery in the retail landscape. His expertise in digital growth and product management has been honed through various roles, including EVP at Macy's, VP at Gap, associate partner at IBM, and managing consultant at PwC. He is also a sought-after strategic advisor for several early-stage startups in the retail industry. In this episode, I'm excited because we're going to be talking about something that I think every consumer who shops online, which has to be everyone at this point, including like my dad, and their concerns for retailers, their carbon footprint, and how that landscape is evolving, its influence on business strategies. So we're excited to have Mike to give us his expertise with regards to sustainability and addressing the growing demand for environmentally friendly initiatives in retail, the role of AI in emerging technologies, and creating a more sustainable retail and delivery experience. So welcome, Mike, live from the Venetian, is it?
It is the Venetian. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here and I look forward to this discussion.
All right.
Yeah, welcome. Great to have you. What is this topic we speak of? People delivering stuff that you order online? What is that? No, guilty. Yes, the world has changed, whether it's pandemic driven or not. Obviously, it was happening before then. I imagine it's been a huge boom since then. But before we get in, we've got some great question topics here. I've got a quick yes or no question for you, Mike, because then I want to take a shot at it. The company is known as Eighth Notch, right? The Eighth Notch. I trust you know why it's called the Eighth Notch.
I do.
Okay.
Do you like me to tell
Is it? I want to see if I found it right, because I could not find it on your site. Does it have to do with diesel electric motors and the 8 throttle notches and the one that's full speed?
It does. It does. And if you don't mind, I'll take 30 seconds on the origin story. Jamie Sappin is the founder of the company, a very good friend of mine. His dad was a railroad man, and he wanted to pay an homage to him. And the 8th notch setting on a locomotive is the most powerful and efficient setting possible. So it was it was an homage to him, but it was also talking about how you can make something that seems old and staid more efficient if you just think about the problem differently.
Very cool. I appreciate that, and I'm glad I found it. And that's a cool story. And I actually learned a little bit more about diesel engines, that they are actually electrically driven, and the diesel is for the alternator. So I'm sure you all know a lot more about that then. But very cool.
Well, Ryan, you are the only person who has ever looked it up. Everyone asks, but you're the only one that did research. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And I understand how that story maybe is a little bit close to the vest and heartfelt for the team over there, but you might put it on that site too. It's pretty cool. Okay, so sustainability in retail. Why has sustainability emerged as a critical issue for retailers in recent years? Can you tell us a little bit about this evolving landscape, the impact on business strategies for sustainability in retail?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is trying to figure out how to answer their ESG commitment, right? Right, they're being pushed by investors, whether it be the Black Rocks of the world to pension management funds, and ultimately consumers who are starting to vote differently with their wallet. But they've made commitments in many cases that have a countdown clock associated with them. They've made commitments about 2030 or 2050 as it relates to climate commitments, and yet they don't really have a path in many cases. I mean, retail is inherently consumption-based, so everything has a carbon impact. You know, as you were doing research on us, I continued to do research in the space, and there was that came out recently that just kind of blew my mind, is that the retail supply chain alone currently contributes to 25% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. So a quarter of every, you know, greenhouse gas that is out there is because we're manufacturing, we're moving, we're buying something. And it's from, you know, the materials that are used, how we manufacture, where they source from, how they transport and deliver products, all the carbon impact, and ultimately can be looked at through, you know, can we do better from a sustainability lens?
Got it.
Yeah, makes sense. So if we think about just the consumers and the sentiment, so I made a joke about my dad shopping online. He's adopted it way quicker than he adopted like online banking or anything like that. So as far as that generation, then you talk about the generation of my generation. So I exclusively shop online. If I avoid stores if I have to. The only reason I'd go to stores if it's like last minute, but I'd say my generation's a little bit mixed in that. Some people really still do like shopping. You talk about my kids though. They don't even think of a store as an option. Like if we need to buy something, they're like, open up Amazon, or when, like, is it here yet? Can it be delivered today or tomorrow? They don't, it's not even like an inclination in their mind to like go to a store. That's like secondary thought, like maybe just for shoes, because you have to try them on or something.
Sure.
So I think that behavior is definitely, you know, going to change. And then I think with regards to, you know, this next topic I want to broach with you, the consumer demand or sentiment on sustainability, I think you'll also see an increase in that, right? So again, if I think about my parents' generation, not sure they care a whole lot, maybe a handful of them. My generation definitely cares more. You know, we grew up learning about Earth Day and things like that, conservation. My kids' generation, they're definitely going to care about it a lot. And I think it's going to be, we're already seeing it, you know, with Gen Z and their demands for these types of things, not just sustainability necessarily in the workplace, like energy, water, waste, carbon, but also other ESG concepts like DE&I and risk mitigation, governance, and you know, I want to make sure their company is doing good in the world and not making the world a worse place. So anyways, long-winded introduction, or by way of saying, you know, what are you observing this trend as well? Is the consumer sentiment on sustainability increasing? Is it increasing because younger people are making up the majority of people who are shopping online? Or, you know, what trends are you seeing, and how do you think it's going to play out?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's one that we've done some independent study, but also have leveraged a lot of what others are looking at, because it is a trend line. And you mentioned the difference in the generations. I mean, you know, I come from it from a position of guilt more than anything else, right? I have shamelessly consumed, and I'm going to shamelessly consume, but can I shamelessly consume in a better pattern? Moving towards advocacy, which is, you know, someone is saying, I just don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to go find a different brand. I'm going to find a different brand that is doing that is practicing the way that I want a retailer to operate. And if we break it down to statistics, I mean, just from 22 to 23, in 22, 67% of consumers that were asked this question factored eco-friendly practices into their purchase decision. That grew to 75% in 2023. So we're seeing this rapid shift in terms of how people are looking at it. You know, the space that we spend time in terms of e-commerce fulfillment, the metrics, you know, get a little deeper, and if I could go a little bit deeper, I will. You know, it's people are looking and saying, I know that I'm getting a lot of packages, and if I'm getting 5 or more packages every month, I'd like to consider something a little more eco-friendly than just the standard approach, right? And no, I was just going to add the time factor to that, because I think that's the piece that we need to overcome, right? That you talked about your kids needing it immediately, right? And I think at some point we have to recognize that immediacy is a bad move, right? At some point you have to recognize that that these things, if they're done with a little bit more coordination, a little bit more synchronization, you can start to unlock a different amount of value, and part of that is carbon.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt you. I think I was just going to ask you if you think part of that increase in the demand was because of the availability, right? So I think in the past when you're shopping online, these options to, you know, have a single delivery day, or use less boxes. If you wait 2 days, they weren't so in your face. Whereas now I feel like the apps, at least that I'm using, are presenting that kind of first and foremost, like they're pushing it almost. So maybe the demand was always there, but now you're able to accommodate, the desire to do that.
Well, there clearly is one company that does it more than anyone else, and that's Amazon, right? I mean, they are, every time you check out at Amazon, you are being offered with these options, right? You want them all delivered on the same day, and now they're starting to push the carbon avoidance conversation as well. Other retailers don't really have a mechanism because they're not as well intersected with their delivery partners. And so they have to rely upon their delivery partners, and what they're doing is still working under the old condition of Amazon conditioned me to be fast, right? Now and that's what I'm attempting to do. Now Amazon is conditioning consumers to be sustainable. They have to jump on that trend as well. That's part of what we're riding right now.
Yep. And I think it's just the nature of, households might be ordering multiple products a week from Amazon, but from other websites, you might just be ordering one sweater once in a while. But with Amazon, you might order 2 items on Monday, 3 items on Tuesday, 4 items on Wednesday, whatever it is, and they want to consolidate. And yes, you're the concept of teaching delayed gratification, even if it's artificial, is so important, because the expectation now, whether it's with online content or things that you order online or anything, is just that, not even just in kids and adults as well, is that if it's not immediately, it's not satisfactory. So yeah, that's definitely something that you have to work with to manage expectations and delayed gratification, because there's just no sense. People don't wait for things anymore.
Sure. Or in the case of myself, and I don't know what's coming when, because things are coming constantly, right? I mean, everything, I get delivery every single day. I just don't know what it's going to be. And I only recognize when something is late when I go, I did order that a while ago. Where is it? And if you get conditioned that everything's being delivered constantly, that there's a way to be able to break into that and create the Amazon effect across all the other retailers, because it's a combined basket to be able to approach and synchronize deliveries at the same time, or we call merge deliveries. So yeah. I can talk about that more as we get into this, but yes, back to your original question, people are seeing a shift and they're starting to recognize it. How retailers react to that, it's still a question at this point, because they haven't figured out how to do it and do it profitably.
So yeah, I'm glad that that's the sentiment, and I've talked about this before, but my positivity or faith or belief that we are going to be okay is based on the fact that the consumers, and that's the everyday individual, all of us, actually are demanding it and want and will choose those options. And I understand, I don't know anything about kids, like nothing, but I understand the general idea that instant gratification is super valuable, and people often say that, but when we talk to each other, none of us typically actually require that. And I'm looking at a statistic that says something like only 19% of people are not willing to wait. 48% will wait 1 to 3 days. 33% will wait 4 or more days. So if they're answering honestly, then maybe that's a good thing. We are responsible enough to say, for the sake of the environment or the drivers or whatever, I am willing to wait. So I consider that positive. Helee and I were talking the other day, to me, I consider myself, if I need something urgently, I consider that a failure in my process. Like, why do I need this urgently? I should have been prepared. I should have planned ahead of time, and I should have had it. So for me, and I know that happens all the time, that you get in a bind and you need something, but it sounds like people are willing. So we talked about, I thought it was very interesting. You said Amazon trained us to think that we want it quickly, and now they're engaging us on, well, don't need it so quickly. We'll plan ahead and then we'll consolidate. And then there's these other retailers who they're still thinking that their goal to being successful is being very speedy. And you're saying they're a little bit behind the times. Okay, so is that where Eighth Notch comes in to help them realize the same kind of process improvement that Amazon's done? Is it?
Absolutely. And it's the right question. And everybody tends to lag a leader a little bit, right? And And people lagged Amazon for a long time in terms of getting free and fast, right? Even though it wasn't free and it wasn't always fast. But the perception it was. And now Amazon, is now giving the consumer choice that says if you want to lean in and feel better about your choices, we'll just make sure that we deliver things at the same time as something else is being delivered, or when something else is coming to your neighbor or something else. That's what we're doing, is we're taking that same ability because of our relationship with one of the two major package carriers out there. It's a strategic relationship. Unfortunately, I still can't use their name, but you could flip a coin and you'd be right half the time and wrong half the time. And they cover half of the $6 billion market of packages being delivered to people's doorsteps. So I've got about 3 billion packages that I can impact across thousands of retailers, right? Once we're at scale. And that is bringing what I like to consider the Amazon effect to the rest of the retail industry, because you may shop from retailer A today, but you shop from retailer B tomorrow and retailer C the next day. If I can figure out a way of having all of those packages dropped off next Tuesday, there's a benefit to you because everything's being delivered at the same time. But there's also this massive operational improvement because that driver didn't need to stop 3 times. He only had to stop once. And every time he doesn't have to stop his truck, get out, bring the package to you, get back in his truck, start and move. It's a multi-dollar savings, and it's about 800 grams of carbon that isn't created. And those savings, we've created not only the technology associated with figuring out how to match up and merge packages together, but also that we have worked with the carrier to say, share that benefit financially, and share that benefit from a carbon reduction standpoint, and share it with the retailer and share it with us. And so we created this 3-way gain share model that is lucrative for everybody involved. It's definitely a large cost savings for the retailer. It's a smart number for us, but it's the carbon savings that becomes the gift with purchase. If you're a retailer, it's a term that you use a lot. That becomes incredibly valuable to them, because all it says is, if you ship on a date that we tell you instead of your desire to ship as fast as possible, you can unlock financial savings, carbon savings. That's what we're doing. And that's effectively what Amazon is trying to do across all their packages. We're trying to bring it to the rest of the retail industry.
So in doing that, that's obviously going to be a heavy lift and a lot of logistics. And I'm still to this day very impressed that with a very long number, I can watch a package and the level of detail and watch it travel across the country and know exactly where it is. And that's just one package in the universe of millions of packages. So a lot of logistics. And I think the conversation around AI in all industries, not just, of course, logistics and your world, I feel like it recently went from being conceptual to something tactical that people are really using effectively to run their business, and they're seeing the cost savings with regards to AI and things they've implemented. Are you guys using any? Have you used any AI and any, or think about using any AI technology and seen any sort of early returns with what you guys are doing at your company?
Yeah, we are definitely AI enabled. I mean, I think it's a fairly narrow interpretation that we're looking for, because we're trying to say, what are all the packages that are coming to Heelee's address or could be coming to Heelee's address over the next week, and then determining how do we organize when they start their journey upstream to ensure that they end their journey at the same time in the back of that delivery truck. The network takes care of itself. The carrier network is incredibly predictable, right? It's about 97 to 98% predictable in terms of the delivery, the transit times that they have. It's about ensuring that you can start the journey at the right time to match with a package that's already in play, or organize all the packages that are going to start their journey and determine when they should enter into the network. AI helps us in that. It's a machine learning question, and it's a math question as well. So, we believe that there's more that can be done as we learn more and more about the address, and we learn more and more about the delivery behaviors around the neighborhood. And ultimately, as we think about it, it becomes something where we think that there's a way to be able to reduce driver routes, compress routes, maybe eliminate days in terms of that a driver needs to be driving on it. But that's once we get at scale. AI is definitely going to be along for the ride throughout that.
Very cool. Yeah, always looking for cool, practical examples of putting this latest, greatest technology to work. You talk about, I think I was reading somewhere with the eighth notch, you talk a lot about carbon avoidance versus carbon offset, let's say. What are is that something intentionally that your team has thought of?
Yeah, it's a term that I'm intentionally using. I wrote an article not too long ago about this, trying to explain it a little bit better. And it's something that, I was just at the National Retail Federation conference in New York, right? It's their big show, right? 40,000 people, 1,200 companies exhibiting, hundreds of speakers, et cetera. And I went there trying to understand the message that they had from a sustainability standpoint. And I think the problem is that we've been focused too much on the offset component, which is it's going to cost more, right? Somebody has to pay something in order to be able to get the offset, right? It happens when you book an airline ticket, right? And they ask if you want to have an offset. There are many small retailers that are putting an upcharge right now in terms of trying to offset the impact of the carbon delivery around it. And so avoidance, I look at it through the lens of, if you can find a way to take the event that creates the carbon out, you find a way to avoid the carbon creation completely. And our event that we're talking about is a delivery stop, right? If there are, if the delivery truck stops at your house, Ryan, 5 times a week, and I can figure out how to do it 4, I've taken a delivery stop out, right? That carbon was never created, right? And so once you start multiplying that by the number of packages that we can impact, we've got an initial goal of trying to impact 100 million a year. It's thousands and tons of carbon avoidance that was never created, because it's taking a process that has inefficiencies and finding efficiencies in it. And that was the thing that we talked about when we went out to the VC community, and the VC that invested in us was very focused on this. And it's like there's very few companies that are looking at the carbon problem through efficiency. And when you are able to do that and not only unlock financial benefits, but carbon savings at the same time, that's pretty powerful, and it's unique.
So yeah, that's wild. I think I get it. So let's take a typical consumer, or an example of consumer. Let's call him Brian. Okay, it's not me. We'll call him Brian.
Right.
Brian is not going to decide to buy fewer things or whatever. Like, that's not an option. I need stuff and I need to get it delivered to my house. But I do feel badly about it. Brian does. So Brian's willing to click a button and pay a couple extra dollars here and there if someone's committing to then handling an offset or whatever. So fine, okay, I got to get my stuff. I will pay a little bit extra for that flight or for that rental car to do it. And now you're saying, well, guess what? I'm going to give you another way to meet that, achieve the feeling that you have and to feel better about it. You don't actually have to pay more. Do it this way, and you're actually going to get the same or better or similar type benefit. So certainly Brian would like that option better. And I'll say, I still need my stuff, but I am willing to wait a day or consolidate those packages and make everything better. So if that's where we're going, that sounds right to me.
Yeah, and I like that Brian's a good guy, right? Brian is trying to be better. Brian sounds a lot like, he's even okay. He sounds a lot like me, right? In terms of, I want to feel good about my consumption, but I'm not going to change it. Somebody else changes it. And the way that we started this is that, we felt going up into checkout and making it the consumer's choice was probably too hard at the beginning, right? And so what we've done is we work with retailers after the purchase decision has been made, and they have a time window associated with it, right? They have 5 days to get it there. And most retailers try to do the surprise and delight. They'll pick, pack, and ship as quickly as possible and try and get it out the door, and it gets to you in 3 days instead of the 5 days that they committed to. Sometimes that's a delight. For me, that's an unwelcome surprise, because I'm out and a package shows up on my doorstep and I'm not ready for it, right? Or my gate's closed, right?
That's a big,
right?
that really does me.
Right. So what we're doing is we're saying use that time more strategically. Because if you use that time more strategically, there's probably up to a 20% chance I can find another item that you bought from another retailer going through the same carrier coming to you in the same time frame that I can connect the two and both packages get delivered at the same time. And guess what? You can communicate that date because it's a hard date, right? The predictability of the network is very, very strong that you can communicate it. And also, Helee, as you mentioned, you can now provide the tracking information if you want to track it through the network as well. So that's the first change. Our goal ultimately is to get up into checkout, but we're doing it now, and it's not known to it's not consumer choice, but it's a consumer benefit.
Got it.
And are the retailers incentivized to team up in that way? Because if I'm a retailer and you're saying, okay, we can save miles, we can have the trip never taken, which is the best kind of trip. But if my business, my commitment is to deliver a package to Brian by a certain date, and then collaborating with another retailer going through this process, could it all jeopardize, my customer's experience? Are you running into any of that where they're like, you know what, we don't want to be tied to other retailers in case their item's delayed, it messes up my item, or that's not a concern?
Yeah, the beauty of that is that they don't know who the other retailer is. And it's all independent packages going through the network that just end up in the final sort hub that go into the back of the truck. And if that other retailer package is delayed, it doesn't matter. They did the right thing. They did the right thing. They shipped it on the date that we told them to, right? That's the behavioral change that we're saying. Instead of ship as fast as possible, ship in a scheduled, coordinated manner, and you unlock the value. The amount of time it's going to get delivered with that other package is in the high 90s, but they're going to reap the financial benefit and the perceived carbon benefit associated with that just by changing when they actually ship it.
Got it. And with the gain share model that you described earlier, remind me, did that include the consumer themselves? Like, is the consumer seeing anything back in terms of like a rebate, or the gain share model is really just for the retailers?
It's for the retailer, right? But the assumption is that, I mean, I leave it up to the discretion of the retailer what they do with that. Do they take that as, true bottom line savings? Do they find a way to incent the customer in a different way? Do they not? I mean, it's part of their business model. Shipping costs have grown.
They can do whatever they want with that savings.
Yeah. And frankly, it's a way to reinvent free shipping if you really wanted to. I wrote a second article. I hate to keep pumping myself up, but I wrote a second article on how you can reinvent free shipping. And part of this is you change the dynamic of it, right? Is that if you need it free and fast, if you need it fast, you're going to pay for it. But if you want it free, you're going to have to lean in and allow us to see if we can find a sustainable shipping option associated and connect it to another package. And that's really the kind of the trade-off, that once we shift this up into checkout, that we start to enlist the consumer in that conversation as well.
Got it. And by the way, don't worry about, tooting your own horn or beating your own chest. You're a podcast star, so that's fine. In order to be a podcast star, you have to hit an enormous ego in the first place, so it's totally fine. Okay, so another question for you. So obviously a lot of the reason these retailers are doing it is, bottom line cost savings, perhaps their altruistic nature of wanting to leave the world a better place. But in doing that, they want to be able to report and disclose, and maybe some of it is compliance driven. How are they effectively measuring, communicating their efforts around their fulfillment practices? How important is transparency in this process, and are they pretty accurate with it, would you say?
Yeah, I do not contend to understand how retailers are thinking about providing transparency around every single carbon impact that they have across their supply chain, because that metric that I told before is 25% of all greenhouse gases are based on the retail supply chain. So it's massive, right? I think they've got to start talking about small wins, and this is a win, right? This is a win at the end of the process, and something that they could start to promote in their e-commerce business as well, right? That, based on choices that we've made on your behalf from a delivery perspective, we've been able to, take 6,000 cars off the road, or have the impact of 6,000 cars taken off the road. Excuse me. I think this is still an early stage part of that, but these are hard savings, right? Because it's not the offset, it's the avoidance piece. And because of that, and because the carrier is going to report this is something that they are going to partner with the retailer on to be able to say you can co-report it as well. The rest of the supply chain, I can't really talk to, other than I know that there are lots of companies out there that are trying to figure out how to do that more effectively. And in many, I talked to a company the other day that is thinking about kind of the same thing that we're doing, but with containers, right? And trying to figure out how do you determine when containers ship on a ship that becomes a much more sustainable model because of when they're actually delivered to the end retailer, and trying to think through that conversation as well. So there's still work to be done, but I still think that most retailers haven't figured out how to describe the wins well. I think this is a win that you can be able to talk to, that everybody would be able to understand, because it's more packages are being delivered less often to my address, and you didn't ask me to change a single thing.
Slightly off topic. Are we sure that home delivery is here to stay, or are we all going to be back in shopping malls soon, and brick and mortar is going to make a big comeback? What do you think, Mike? You must know something about it.
Yeah, I think you're tapping into my DNA on the retail side, right? I mean, we've seen a shift post. I mean, we saw a permanent upshift in e-commerce during COVID, right? And we've seen kind of a leveling off over 22 and into 23, but still growing at twice the percentage of stores growth, right? So people are trying to figure out, and the omni-channel world is here to stay in some way, shape, or form. You're seeing pure play retailers starting to figure out a brick and mortar store. You know, I just went through another Amazon Go shop here in Vegas in terms of being able to pick up a few things, right? I think smarter stores are here to stay, right? I think the buy online, pick up in store conversation is something that if you need it immediately, you're right, that is. And if you're willing to pay a fee, then you can get same day or next day delivery, right? But I think it's going to be pay for your choice, and instead of assuming. But if you want it free, just understand that we're going to have to figure out a better way of getting it to you. And I think we got so conditioned during COVID, having everything brought to us, it's hard for me to believe that there's going to be a massive shift back. I think there's been, it started to, change a little bit and readjust, but e-commerce is still on the same trajectory. It actually upshifted during that time and is not going backwards.
Well, Helee, did you want to share your story about the new purpose of malls?
The new purpose of malls. I can. I'll make it brief because it's unsettling. So I live in the Midwest. We had single degree negative temperatures, 1, -1, -5. And in addition to the pure misery of existence under those conditions, one element is dogs will not go outside. They won't do it. So you pass a day, 2 days, you're like, all right, the dog hasn't gone out. So, and nearby, there's a nice mall, luxury mall, used to be probably one of the nicest malls in the country. And I grew up here, so we've slowly watched it decline over time anyways, just because shopping malls are doing what they're doing. We've watched all the stores go out of business. It used to be like a retailer couldn't get a slot in that mall. You had to wait.
Right.
And now it's like you could have anyone, new stores open, they close within months. Mall's dying. Insult to injury, they've made it a dog-friendly mall, probably with the intention of like, come buy a Louis Vuitton bag, bring your cute little fluffy poodle if it'll make you buy more Louis Vuitton bags. But during this time of sub-zero temperatures, everyone's like, oh, I can walk my dog at the mall, right? So we all bring our dogs to the mall for an innocent walk because the dog hasn't been out in days. But it's become like, then one dog, goes to the bathroom inside the mall, then another dog does, and they all smell it. You know how dogs work. So now this gorgeous General Growth mall that used to be like high-end, one of the most high-end malls in the country, is essentially just like a free indoor dog park. And I mean, they're making all the plans in the middle of the marble floor. And I just had a moment, I was sharing this with Ryan tastefully over lunch yesterday, that I had just watched this decline of the mall in my lifetime of living here, growing up here, and what it's become. So that's where retail's at Northbrook Court in the Chicago suburb.
I mean, look, I work for Macy's, right? And we have lots of stores and lots of malls, right? And that was one of the major challenges, which is, how do you reinvigorate the purpose of the mall, right? And people have gone through that, through exercise and walking clubs and dog parks, as you've mentioned. It will continue to evolve and probably get smaller, but it'll always be multi-use in most cases. I think the retailers are going to figure out a way to determine the experiential component of it in some cases, whether it's with your dog or without your dog. But there's a lot of things you can do with the floor space, and a lot of things. And big box retail in a mall is probably not the right thing anymore. But is it a place where you go pick up your e-commerce order? Maybe it is, right? But on those other times you don't need to, then you have it delivered. Our analogy could work in that as well. I mean, if you wanted to pick your delivery point as a pickup point at a mall, I could do that too, right? Right. There's no reason why you couldn't say everything that I wanted to buy over the next 2 weeks consolidate into one place, because I'm going to go pick up. I'm going to go walk my dog and be able to pick everything up, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of ways of being able to do it. Malls are an interesting thing, and I think we're going to watch them continually evolve over the next 10 years or so.
We will. The popular demand around here is pickleball. There's this pickleball craze. They want all the malls to be turned into pickleball, like tournament facilities, which could work. So I have one other kind of off-topic question for you, and this might not be, your area of expertise or the focus of your company, but maybe since you're in the space. So of course, the frequency of deliveries and the trucks is a big concern from an environmental standpoint. What about like the packaging? Like that's what I worry about. I feel bad. I recycle the boxes if I can, but a lot of those plastic envelopes and stuff can't be recycled, and I feel badly about that. Is that so my question might be, it's obviously a concern, people are working to consolidate and things like that, but what's a bigger problem if you translated it to straight carbon? Is it the landfills and the boxes, or is it truly like the drivers and the deliveries? What's worse?
Yeah, it's a really great it's a great question. I'm not sure I've got a great answer for it, other than it's all impactful. And I think you can't, I think you can get overwhelmed by the size of the problem. Again, that 25% of greenhouse gases are based on the retail in some way, shape, or form. I think packaging materials have been something that people have been looking at and continue to look at, right? I'll go back to Amazon. Every Amazon box you get, pay attention to the type that they're putting on it now, right? This box uses less materials than it used to, right? That they're finding a way, right? They're saying recycle it, reuse it if you can, right? If you're going to ship something, use this box again. So I think the messaging is getting out, the purpose is getting out, and the intent is getting out. We're definitely focused on the transportation component. Packaging materials have been a historical problem and will continue to be a historical problem. I think people are really trying to figure that out, because that's the easier side of it, because I can just keep making things that get. I get food prep delivered, right? And it comes with the dry ice packs, right? And they figured out that's the one thing that they can't figure out what to do in terms of, you can't put that in the recycling bin. Everything else you can, but the dry ice packs you can't. Yeah. They'll get there. But I think it's going to take all of us rowing in that direction, that sustainability is important in order to be able to do this. Because again, back to the question, people aren't going to stop consuming or shopping, and nor should they, because it fuels the economic engine.
Yeah. Well, again, hopeful that, although consumers aren't going to stop, that we will make a better choice, and we are pressuring retailers and others to give us a better option and to participate. So that is hopeful. Well, no, I really appreciate what your expertise and what you're doing at the eighth notch, and what we learned today. That's very cool. And I love the direction. We got to move beyond just Amazon being the only one out there. So finding a way to help the others is really cool. That brings us to a little game that we want to play. It's important to bring a little levity, even though these conversations are very important and meaningful. Although we did talk about pooping in malls, so we covered that. But Helee, to your surprise,
you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. We're still going to play this game, but this is a brand new game, so bear with me. This is a brand new game. I have sunset the old one, and this is a new game starting 2024 here. And you actually have two options, Mike. Would you rather play how many places named this, or things previously named other things?
Good Lord. Why am I the guinea pig and number one?
Number one, okay. Because we're kicking off 2024. You're the first guest of our podcast in this calendar year. This game is called How Many Places Named This? And this is inspired by just wanting to understand the meaning and use of names and not taking them for granted. So all you got to do is tell me if 0, 1, or 3 places have this name. Arden Arcade.
I'm going to go with 3.
No. This is one of the few places in the U.S., I should have said, that only has 1. There is only one place known as Arden Arcade. It is a census-designated place, a CDP in Sacramento County. I thought that was, you're out in Northern California, right?
I'm in San Francisco, yes. So
Yeah,
Sacramento is like another country.
Well, another country to you from San Francisco. I get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Arden, we're going to learn about this now. Arden Arcade. Arden was because of the person that moved from Minnesota to that area and wanted to name it after where he was from. And then Arcade is where there's this river flowing through there, and there are these trees that look like an arcade, which is an architectural thing. So Arden Arcade is one of the limited number of places where it only has one name in the U.S. So incorrect, but thank you for being the guinea pig and playing the first new game of the year.
I thought it was a mall-oriented question.
Yes.
The
picks on
arcade,
all
yeah.
podcasts. Yeah. It's not just you. It's typical
that's
for the format. All podcast guests get ridiculed by Ryan at the end of the podcast.
Not ridiculed.
Celebrated. Has anyone gotten the question right?
Well, this is the first time we've ever played How Many Places Named This. The other one was tell me if we're making craft beer or craft coffee, and that was a 50-50 question. And I think 80% of people got it wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about two of my passions, so I would have liked to have tried that one.
Yeah, well, you should have got to us, or we should have got to you last year.
2023. That's okay. Well, I feel like I learned something. I will go look up Arden Arcade now and learn more about it.
Good. Well, this has been another episode of the ESG Experience Podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed your time with us, make sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast directory. There's a new episode every month. Thanks to our loyal subscribers for continuing to support us. And if you want to continue the conversation between episodes, follow us on your favorite social media channel at #ESG Experience. Mike, really appreciate the conversation today. I learned a lot, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. We appreciate
It's been a pleasure.
it.